wonder just how you move? We're going on an amazing trip. We're diving deep into the world of movement. From the tiniest life forms all the way to, well, you.
And get this, you might be surprised, but moving. It isn't just about walking around or going for a run. It's like a basic part of being alive.
Yeah, everything. Even like the microscopic stuff, like cells moving all the way to birds flying.
For this deep dive, we're looking at a chapter from, a biology textbook all about this, locomotion and movement, that's what it's called. And they start with the amoeba. You know those single-celled things?
Perfect place to start. See, the amoeba shows us like the difference between just moving in general and locomotion. Locomotion, that's the ability to like change your location.
Okay, I see. So even my arm, bending my arm, that's movement, but it's not locomotion.
Right, because you're not going anywhere. Locomotion, you got to change your position, like if you walk across the room.
So they're both movement, but locomotion has a goal. Get from point A to point B. Exactly. Now, here's the cool part. Some, like little organisms, use the same parts of their body to move in general and for locomotion. Like the paramecium, another one of those single-celled guys. It uses cilia, those are like little hairs, to move around and to eat. Swept the food right into its mouth.
So even the tiny stuff has like a purpose to how they move. It's how they live in their world.
Absolutely. But it gets more complicated, way more complicated as you look at like bigger life forms. Our bodies, we have 3 different types of movement all happening in our cells.
3. Okay, now I got to know.
We've got amoeboid movement, ciliary movement, and then muscular movement. Just like those simple creatures we talked about, each one is super important for how our body works.
Wow. So like white blood cells, they actually move like amoebas. They use, amoeboid movement. And they're chasing down bad stuff in our blood, like a microscopic battle going on.
Exactly. And then there's ciliary movement. Those tiny cilia, they're all over in our organs, keep things moving along. In our lungs, they sweep out all the junk.
Our own little cleaning crew.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yep. And they're important for, female reproduction too, helping move eggs. But the big one, the one we all know about, is muscular movement. That's how we walk, talk, dance, all of that.
Muscles. They're the powerhouses. But I'm guessing it's got to be more complicated than just flexing, right? Like, what's really happening when we talk about muscles?
You got it. It's not simple. We actually have 3 different types of muscle: skeletal, visceral, and cardiac. Each one has its own special structure and function.
Okay, so skeletal muscle, that's the stuff we control, right? Like lifting weights or doing yoga.
Right. Those are the ones attached to your bones. They're in charge of all the movements you choose to do. And if you look at them under a microscope, they got this striped look, or striated, it's called.
So skeletal muscle is all about what we want to do. What about the stuff we don't think about?
That's where visceral muscle comes in. These guys, they line our organs, like our stomach, intestines, bladder, all that. They're smooth looking, not like those striped skeletal muscles, and they just work automatically without us needing to think about it.
So they're keeping everything running behind the scenes. That's a pretty big job.
It is. And then you've got the cardiac muscle, the one that makes up your heart. Now this one, it's kind of a mix of both.
So it's striped like skeletal muscle, but works automatically like visceral muscle, a combo muscle.
Exactly. It's really specialized, made for those continuous contractions that, keep your blood pumping.
Wow, that's something else. Okay, so we have these 3 types of muscles, but how do they actually contract? How do they make us move? Like what's happening at the microscopic level?
This is where it gets really cool. To understand how muscles contract, we got to zoom in, way in. We got to look at these tiny units called sarcomeres. They're like the workers, the ones making the muscle contract.
So if the muscle is a factory, the sarcomere is the machine doing the work.
I like that. Each sarcomere has these 2 main parts, actin and myosin filaments, they're called. Imagine like 2 sets of fingers all interlocked and they slide past each other. That makes the sarcomere shorter and the whole muscle contracts.
So it's like a microscopic dance. These filaments are moving around.
You got it. And it's all controlled by signals from your nervous system.
Okay, so like if I want to lift my arm, what happens? From my brain to my bicep.
Well, first your brain sends a signal, an electrical impulse, down a motor neuron. It goes to the muscle that needs to contract, and that signal travels to what's called the neuromuscular junction. It's where the neuron and the muscle fiber meet.
Sounds important, like a crucial meeting point.
Oh, it is. This is where the nervous system and the muscle, they talk. That nerve impulse, it triggers the release of this neurotransmitter, acetylcholine.
Acetylcholine, yeah, that brings a bell. Isn't that like a chemical messenger?
Exactly. It attaches to these receptors on the muscle fiber, and that sets off a chain reaction. Eventually, it causes calcium ions to be released into the muscle cell.
So calcium ions are what make the muscle contract.
Yeah, you could say that. In a resting muscle, you see, there are these binding sites on the actin filaments. Those are where the myosin needs to attach to create the force. But they're blocked by this protein. It's called tropomyosin.
Like the actin has a cover on it.
Yep. And calcium, it comes along and removes that cover. It binds to this other protein, troponin, and that causes the tropomyosin to shift, exposing the binding sites. Now the myosin can finally get to the actin.
So calcium's like the choreographer, making sure everyone's in the right place at the right time.
Exactly. Now that those binding sites are open, the myosin heads, they're like little levers. They attach to the actin filaments. We call those cross bridges. Then they use energy from ATP, that's like the energy currency of cells. And the myosin heads pull the actin filaments, making the sarcomere shorter, and that makes the muscle contract.
So it's like attach, pull, detach, repeat, over and over. That's how we move. That's amazing. But I've always wondered, why are some muscles red and some white? Is there a difference?
Good eye, that color difference. It's because of this protein called myoglobin. It stores oxygen inside the muscle cells. Red muscles, the kind you use for endurance like long-distance running, they're packed with myoglobin. That's why they're red.
So red muscles are the marathon runners of the muscle world. What about the white ones?
White muscle fibers, they don't have as much myoglobin. They get their energy fast. Without oxygen, it's called anaerobic metabolism. Think of sprinting. Those muscles get tired quickly because they don't have a steady supply of oxygen.
So if you know what kind of muscle fibers you have, you could train better. Marathon runners need those red fibers. Powerlifters need white ones. Pick the right tool for the job, huh?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But we've been talking about muscles needing something to pull on. That's where the skeletal system comes in. It's the framework, the support system that gives muscles something to work with.
It's like the unsung hero.
Totally. The human skeleton, 206 bones, that's a lot. And they're not just static, they're living tissue, always being remodeled and repaired.
And it's organized right. Axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton.
You got it. The axial skeleton, that's the core. Skull, spine, rib cage. Protects your organs, supports the body.
And the appendicular skeleton, that's all about movement.
Exactly. Arms, legs, shoulders, hips, all of it gives us the freedom to move around and interact with the world.
So muscles, bones, we got the power, the structure, but how do these bones connect in a way that lets us move? That's where the joints come in, right?
Joints are crucial. They're how the bones meet up. They're how we bend, twist, rotate, all that good stuff.
Like the hinges and the swivels of the body.
Huh, I like that. And there are different types of joints, each with their own range of motion. You've got fibrous joints. Those are immovable, like the ones in your skull. And then there are cartilaginous joints. They allow for some movement, like between your vertebrae.
And then the main attraction, the synovial joints, the most common ones, the ones that give us the biggest range of motion.
Exactly. Think of your knee or your shoulder.
Yeah.
Those are synovial joints. They have this fluid inside, lets them move smoothly.
So we've got muscles, bones, joints, all working together for this amazing system of movement. Pretty incredible when you really think about it.
It really is. But like any complex system, things can go wrong. There are a lot of problems that can happen with your muscles and skeleton, things that can make it hard to move, cause pain, even disability.
It really makes you realize our bodies are strong, but they're not invincible.
You said it. For example, there's myasthenia gravis. It's an autoimmune disease where your body actually attacks the connection between your nerves and muscles, leads to weakness and fatigue.
And then there are muscular dystrophies, a whole bunch of genetic disorders that cause muscles to waste away.
Right. And arthritis. Very common. A lot of people have that. It's inflammation in the joints, makes them painful, stiff, hard to move.
And we can't forget osteoporosis. Bones get weak, fragile, easy to break, especially as you get older.
And gout. That's a painful one. Uric acid crystals build up in the joints. Ouch.
Wow. So many things that can go wrong. It makes you think taking care of your body, your muscles, your bones is really important.
Absolutely. Keeping a healthy weight, exercising, eating right, it all makes a difference. Helps prevent or manage these conditions.
This is all fascinating stuff. But before we go too deep into all of the things that can go wrong, let's take a step back and appreciate what we have learned.
Good idea.
We've gone from tiny little single-celled organisms to the complex workings of our own muscles and bones. We've seen how movement is a basic part of life, how our bodies are these amazing adaptable machines.
It really is remarkable. All the things that have to work together perfectly, just so we can take a step or wiggle our finger.
And we're just scratching the surface.
There's so much more to explore. It's amazing what our bodies can do, like from the simplest stuff to like crazy athletic things. Really
Yeah.
shows you how powerful and adaptable our muscles and bones are.
Yeah, no kidding. But we're not done with our movement journey yet. This textbook chapter, it talks about all the different ways animals move. It's wild.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my favorites. You see so many different movement strategies. Each one's perfect for its environment.
Like swimming, flying, crawling, slithering. So many ways to get around.
Right. And each way has its own challenges. Take animals that live in the water. They got to deal with the resistance of the water. It's way denser than air.
Oh, that's why they're all streamlined. With powerful tails and fins, it's like form follows function, right? Dolphins, sharks, whales, they're all built for speed in the water.
Exactly. Then you've got land animals. They're fighting gravity all the time. They need strong legs, sturdy skeletons to hold them up and move them around.
And then there's flying. Birds, they've got it figured out. Defying gravity. Lightweight bones, powerful wings. They can breathe so efficiently.
It's beautiful watching a bird fly. Really shows you the power of evolution, all those adaptations from natural selection.
Speaking of adaptations, what are some of the most extreme examples of animal movement, like record-breaking speed, crazy strength, that sort of thing?
Well, if we're talking speed on land, the cheetah wins, hands down. These cats, they can hit over 70 miles an hour. Just imagine seeing that.
Wow, that's faster than most cars.
It is. And then for pure speed, nothing beats the peregrine falcon. Fastest bird, actually the fastest animal on Earth. When they dive, they can go over 240 miles an hour, like a feathered rocket.
That's insane. But speed isn't everything? What about the slowpokes, like sloths?
Ah, the sloths. They've taken a different approach. Slow and steady for them. It lets them save energy and blend in with the trees.
I guess slow and steady wins the race sometimes. What about animals that move in, really strange ways, like starfish or octopuses?
Great examples. Starfish, they use all those little tube feet to crawl along the ocean floor. And octopuses, they can squeeze their bodies through tiny spaces. They don't even have bones.
Can you imagine an octopus in a yoga class? Talk about flexible.
Haha, yeah, that's a funny thought. But it just shows you there's so much variety in how animals move. Nature's always full of surprises. Evolution leads to some crazy adaptations.
It does. This textbook also talks about how important the nervous system is for movement. It's like our muscles are the engine, but the nervous system is the driver.
Perfect analogy. The nervous system, it's the control center. It sends the signals to your muscles, tells them when to contract, when to relax. It coordinates everything.
Like the conductor of an orchestra.
Yeah.
Keeps everything in sync.
Exactly. It's a complex system, makes sure we move smoothly and on purpose. Think of all the information our bodies are taking in all the time, what we see, hear, smell, touch, our balance. The nervous system processes all that and then tells our muscles what to do so we can interact with the world.
It's amazing how we don't even have to think about it. All those nerves and muscles working together every time we move.
It really is. And it's not just simple movements. The nervous system, it's how we learn new skills, get better at them, adapt to new things.
So when you're learning to ride a bike or play an instrument, you're training your nervous system to send the right signals at the right time.
That's it. And that learning keeps going our whole lives. New situations, new challenges. Our nervous system adapts. We get more skilled, more coordinated.
It makes you think about practice. It's not just building muscle memory, it's training your nervous system, making it more efficient.
That's a great point. Shows you how flexible the brain and nervous system are, always rewiring themselves based on what we experience.
So we can keep learning new things, even as adults.
Of course. Just takes dedication, practice, and being willing to try new things.
That's good to know. So we've got muscles, bones, joints, and the nervous system. All these different systems working together. That's how we move.
Yeah. But we're not done yet. One more piece to the puzzle. We got to talk about the energetics of movement.
Energetics. Okay, now I'm curious. What's that all about?
It's all about the energy. Where does it come from? How does your body turn food into, the work that your muscles do? Think of it like the fuel for a car.
So a car needs gas, muscles need energy to work.
Exactly. And that main source of energy is this molecule, ATP it's called. It stands for adenosine triphosphate. It's like the energy currency of cells. Powers all sorts of stuff, including muscles contracting.
ATP, right? I remember that from biology. It's been a while, though.
Sure.
How our muscles get that ATP?
Well, your body has a few ways of making ATP. Depends on what you're doing, how intense it is, how long you're doing it. For short bursts, like sprinting, your muscles use stored ATP and something called anaerobic metabolism.
Anaerobic, that means without oxygen, right?
Right.
So quick energy, no oxygen needed.
Yep, like a backup generator.
Hmm.
Kicks in when you need a sudden burst.
There's a downside, right?
There is. Anaerobic metabolism, it's great for short bursts, but it makes lactic acid. That's what causes that burning feeling in your muscle.
The burn. That's how you know you've pushed too hard.
Exactly. Now, for things you do for a longer time, like distance running, your body uses aerobic metabolism.
Aerobic with oxygen.
Yeah,
That's why you got to breathe deep when you're exercising.
you got it. Aerobic metabolism, it uses oxygen to break down sugars and fats, makes ATP. It's a more sustainable way to get energy for those endurance activities.
So we have different energy systems working together, depending on what we're doing. Our bodies are really good at adapting.
They are. And like any complex machine, we can fine-tune them, get them working at peak performance.
Okay, now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
So how do we optimize these energy systems? Is it all about training?
Training's a big part of it. Different athletes, they train in specific ways to get better at producing and using ATP. Endurance athletes, like marathon runners, they focus on their aerobic capacity. Strength athletes, like weightlifters, they train to get more muscle mass, more anaerobic power.
So what you do actually changes how your body makes energy.
Yep. And what you eat matters too. Eating a good mix of carbs, fats, proteins that's important for your muscles helps them make energy. You're not going to run a marathon on junk food.
This is making a lot of sense. It's not just how we move, it's how we fuel those movements. It's all connected.
Exactly. It's about understanding the connections between our bodies, our minds, and our environments.
This has been an awesome journey. We started with muscle fibers, then the skeleton, then the nervous system, and now the energy systems.
It's amazing how much is going on under the surface for something we do without even thinking about it. Every step, every movement shows how powerful and incredible the human body is.
And we're not even done. There's still more to learn about movement.
You're right. Our deep dive has just begun.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, like from those tiny muscle fibers to how our bodies get the energy to move. But I feel like there's still more to this.
You're right. There's so much more to movement. We talked about how we move. But what about why? Why do we move in the first place? Why did movement even evolve?
Yeah, that's a good question. Seems so basic, but I never thought about why.
Well, think about the first life forms. Tiny single-celled things in a huge ocean. They moved to find food, to avoid getting eaten, to find, others to reproduce with. Movement, it was how they survived.
So moving was like the reason more complex life forms even evolved.
Exactly. As things evolved, got more complex, so did how they moved. Muscles, bones, nervous systems that let them move faster, be more agile, coordinate better, opened up whole new worlds for them. That's why we have all this diversity of life today.
It's crazy to think movement changed the whole course of evolution. Fish with those streamlined bodies, birds with powerful wings. It's all about adapting to their environment.
That's it. And that journey, it led to us, to humans. We can walk, run, jump, swim, climb, dance, you name it.
And it's not just about surviving anymore. Moving, it's good for our minds, our emotions, dancing, hiking, even just a walk in the park. It makes you feel good.
You got it. It's not just biology anymore. Movement is part of what makes us human, connects us to our bodies, to the world around us, to each other.
So I guess what we've learned from this deep dive into movement is it's more than just muscles and bones. It's how life expresses itself. It's joy, connection. It's the reason we're even here.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And the more we learn about movement, the more we appreciate our bodies, the natural world, how amazing it all is.
I agree. So to everyone listening, get out there and move. See what your body can do. Look at all the different ways things move in nature. Never stop moving physically and mentally. There's always something new to discover.